We love supporting missions overseas, but what happens when the global missions come to us? Let's chat. Thank you guys for being here. I'm here with Michelle, who's one of our missionaries, and then Benji and Eugenia. And you guys are more familiar with what Michelle does than I am. But thank you guys for being here.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So, Michelle, I know that you shared a bit during church about your ministry, but for those who may have missed it, what is it that you do for Global Missions?
Well, I work in Clarkston, Georgia, which is called the Ellis Island of the South. It's a town right off of Atlanta that has a huge population of refugees from all around the world. I work specifically with the refugees from Afghanistan that have come there. So I've been there since 2011 now, working with Afghan refugees. I do some work with women, pregnant women, because my training was as a nurse and a doula. So I've been to something like 153 births there of Afghans, several in one family. So a lot of them call me grandma. But just it's not so much about what I'm doing there, because I do whatever it takes to be in people's lives.
Okay.
So that doing might change from year to year, from time to time. There are focuses we have. I focus on women, I focus on kids, and I focus on teen girls quite a bit. But my job is to be there with them and share Jesus with them.
Wow, that's great.
So how would you say, there's probably been a journey of connecting and trying different things. So like, what are some of the stories of different things you've tried that have helped you really build relationships with people and connect?
We have tried a variety of things, because when I first got there, no one had really broken into the community and identified them. And I was struggling on funds, so I was watching Storage Wars one day and thought, I wonder what would happen if we did that. So I started doing that primarily as a means of making some extra cash. But God has a way of working through whatever you do to connect you and have you be who He wants to be in a community. So as a result of that, I had a lot of clothes left over, and I was like, where am I going to sell all these clothes? So I took 5 tarps down to Clarkston, put them out at my friend's house, which was right across from a major apartment complex, and said, fill a bag for $5. And we were swarmed. And then slowly I met the first Afghans. The first Afghan couple that came out and said hi to us, she was pregnant. When you greet an Afghan woman, you hug them and kiss them on both cheeks. So she was completely covered, and you wouldn't have been able to tell, except when I hugged her. I was like, oh, you're pregnant. And I said, hey, I'm a nurse. It's a loose word in their culture. It doesn't mean I'm licensed anymore. But I said, if you ever need help, you can call me. So the next week when she came, I gave her my phone number and said the same thing. And 2 days later, she called me and kind of screaming on the phone. And she said, I'm bleeding really badly. My husband is at work 2 hours away. Can you come and help? And so I went with them, and I took them back to my house for a while. It was a long journey, and they had a premature baby. And then we stepped in and brought some people in the community in to help them deal with a 2-year-old at home, a newborn in the hospital that needed nursing, and that's transportation and all that. So she then called her best friend, who was pregnant as well, and said, hey, there's this lady that can help you. And so that's kind of how I got into the doula ministry.
Wow.
So it's sometimes just do whatever it is, and then God will connect you, and He opens those doors, and you see those needs and say, well, I can do that. Yeah.
I'm also curious then, like you speak their language, and well, you have nursing background, which is very like practical in many ways. How do you also help your team with no language background, or like no, like practical career background? How do you help your team to be involved in your ministry?
Well, I've had different interns over the years, and I love having interns. It's like I've had people come for a week, for a whole summer, for a year, and we'll just connect them. A lot of times I've had them just teach English. help with homework help in the home,
Mm-hmm.
teach driving.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge need. It's a scary thing to do. We do it anyway.
Scary for me, but my own kids.
It's our
here, right?
cars. It's our thing. We did
Yeah.
end up partially in someone's front yard once while teaching, but we've done it. But really, the goal to connect with the team is to find what they do, what their passions are, and find that need and just try to connect them with people. One of the first interns I got that stayed, she came back, was Gabby. And Gabby's from a Hispanic background. She also came as an immigrant as a child. So she already has this built-in connection with the Afghans. Hispanic culture and Afghan culture really mesh. They're all a people-oriented culture. So a lot of white people are like, okay, now I'm tired, I need a break from. And her break from is to be with people, which is the same as Afghan. So she's amazing. I didn't need to do anything but just introduce her to people and let her be herself. But the one thing I did do when COVID shut us down is I started an online Dari class. Now, my Dari is not perfect. I can communicate, but it's not perfect. But whatever I had, we just started studying as a team together and praying as a team together during COVID, and then just began encouraging them to do language study, and they're quite good now.
So as you've had different people come and volunteer and things have changed, what are like you started out with the just putting tarps out, and then but I think you started helping out maybe with some medical stuff and doing some other programs. What other things have you kind of been involved in that?
We've been involved in a lot of things. So the doula work got me into families' homes and involved in their lives and involved in their kids' lives. Because when you take a woman to the doctor, you take all the kids. And then we entertain the kids. And then I started noticing these kids had really bad teeth, like really bad. And they had dental insurance with their Medicaid, but they didn't know how to access a dentist. The husband couldn't take that much time off work. So we started taking kids to a pediatric dentist in my church who was willing to let me bring five or six kids and help out. And then the parents started to send some of their kids who needed follow-up work with me, with other parents. And then they realized my kids are okay with her. And that led slowly into us having this dream to do something for kids, to have a kids camp or something. But we didn't know how that would work. So we said, well, what if we do a ladies' event? And how would it work if we did a craft? So we did that. And then what if we had a Thanksgiving event? What would happen if we tried to play games in a group? How would they react to that? And it was so fun. One Afghan man who had just come over, he said to us afterwards, he said, all my life I've grown up in war and I've grown up under the Taliban. And then I came here and it's a lot of stress. And I've never laughed until tonight. I laughed so hard watching them. They were doing that cookie on your face so you have to get it down. And they were just cracking up laughing. And just seeing that freedom in their spirits was beautiful. And so that led, like all these steps, and we put it together in our first kids camp. And that led to a kids ministry that we still have today. From kids camp we went to a girls program, girls club, because the girls have a hard time getting out of the house after they reach a certain age. They have to work, they have to do homework.
They have to take care of the siblings.
Yeah, and then people are watching them, so they have to be. So we provided a place every 2 weeks where they could just come and we could have fun together in a private setting, and they could see each other. And then that led to our girls leadership program, and then we had a girls driving program and trauma healing thing. So all of these steps have, just what's the next thing we could do, or what's the next need where we could connect with people.
So when you do these events, do you do this for Afghan background families only, or do you mix, and why not?
I stay with Afghans only. The people that come to Clarkson tend to work in three places. They're either project-based, where they're doing like a medical project or an English project. They can be location based, we're going to work in this apartment complex, or they're people group based. I'm people group based because I speak Dari. That's a skill that not many people have in the community, and I don't speak Nepali or Hmong, so it would be very hard for me to work with them. So I feel God's called me to two Afghans, and there's thousands of them. I can't even meet all the needs that come to me and the people that come to me, so I don't really have a need to branch out. But
So Fremont also has a really big Afghan population. Out of all of your years of experience working with Afghan culture, what would you recommend to someone who's wanting to get involved with the Afghan community in Fremont? That's like, hey, maybe this works well. Try that. And also maybe something that it's like, well, maybe this is something that we tried and didn't work along the way. Maybe avoid that.
I think if you want to get involved with Afghans, you have to commit to loving Afghans. And if you try a program or an event because you think that that might work, don't. Because if you don't have that relationship, that long-term depth of relationship that's committed, no program or event are going to work. I can run these kids camps because I have a 11, 12-year relationship with these families. I have a 10-year-old that's going to be coming to my camps this year. I was at her birth.
Wow.
So that's why programs and events work, because they're based on relationship. If you want to minister to Afghans and get to know them, you have to commit to a relationship with them. That has to be the bedrock of everything you do. You can't be like a door-knocking Christian who comes and says, hey, I want to share the good news with you. Let's sit and have a cup of tea. If you don't want to read the Bible with me, I'm moving on to someone else. You need that relationship. So Afghans are challenging. They're beautiful. They're wonderful. But they take a commitment of a relationship. And they will know if you're not committed to them.
So you have to earn that credit.
You got to earn their credit. You have to be their friends. Honestly, I have my team members who I love, but my Afghan friends are my friends. Those are the people I do things with. Those are the people I text late at night when I want to share something, because they are my friends.
So then it'll be more like you become a friend with one family, and then that, like that news spread among their groups, and it's slowly, widely, that, instead of like cast white net and like see who comes.
Afghans are people. They gossip a lot, and I truly believe that once the gospel really gets into the lives of the Afghan women, they're going to gossip it faster than it spread in the New Testament.
Well, she said like Afghans will, win the gold medal if there's a gossip Olympic. I'm like, we're right there. Koreans are really good at that too.
Koreans are going to win.
Oh yeah, we're right there. We'll see you at the final.
But they gossip and they talk, and they will introduce you to their friends.
Yes.
Whereas if you try to come in from the outside and you try to meet this person and share with them, and then meet this person and introduce them, these people may not like each other and they don't trust each other. They're going to have a hard time talking. But if I meet my best friend over here, Shaima, and Shaima connects me over here to Naima, and they're best friends, we can have a conversation because they already trust each other. So that's a better way to enter in. And so in the beginning, it seemed like just really in-depth relationship with one or two families. But then it just spread. One day I got this call from a lady named Tamana, and she called. She was pregnant. She was 19 years old, had come here. Her English was actually quite good. And she wanted my help. And I said, sure, I'd be happy to help you. And I asked her, who gave you my number? Because I like to know what friend group she belongs into. And she says, Michelle, I don't know who gave me your number. I was scared. So I went to the mosque, and I was in the women's section of the mosque and praying, and I was crying because I'm so scared being pregnant alone here without my mom. And she said, some lady there said, oh, if you're pregnant, you should call this lady. She'll help you. So she don't know who gave it to her. Someone at the mosque.
So you talked about it's more of a sense of being than doing. I don't know maybe if you want to expand on that a little bit. I think it's kind of what we've been talking here, but maybe that's just a little bit more we can build on that.
It is just being who you are, being the love of Christ in action in the community. Is what's important. It's not like I'm going to go there and I'm going to, for example, teach reading to middle school kids. Then you're focused on doing that. And while, yes, I would love for these kids to get really good at their reading, that's not my focus. It's my focus because I love them and because I want them to do well. Right. But that comes out of who I'm being. I'm being someone that wants to serve them like Christ serves us, who wants to love them. And so whatever I do doesn't matter. Whether it's fixing a washing machine with someone, putting training wheels on a bike, moving a couch from here to there, taking them to the doctor, drinking tea with them, whatever it is, it's me being that love of God in the middle of it. And the wonderful thing about Afghan culture is they parent as a community. So they really, really enjoy it if you help raise their children, rather than just the kid is misbehaving and we tend to sit there like, why isn't the mother doing anything? But Afghans are quite happy if you say, hey, no, don't push your sister. That's not kind. You need to be a kind person. You need to show kindness to your sister. And the mom's like, oh, thank you. So that ability to interact with children and my background of working in childcare and teaching is really an open door for me when I'm just doing whatever with a family, because kids ask all sorts of questions and you can talk to them and the moms listen. And so that opens so many doors while you're just being with people. I think Jesus taught that same way. He went around being with the people, and whatever came up, he used it to teach. Rather than coming in saying, oh, I've got this great Bible study program that it works, and if we go through these steps with people, that's awkward. That's not going to work unless someone has agreed to do that with you. But yeah.
But you don't, like, as a third person, if I don't know them, if I don't know their culture or language, if not love of God, how can I love them first, right? Like, if I have no agenda to, how do I enter that community even, like, or even enter to have a relationship? So is there like a kind of like a step one, what's the great way to even start, like, to say hi? Because we have to say hi first, and then we have to exchange a name, because
that's how I said hi.
We are not really like, we're not really friends with, like,
Afghans.
So for someone at FCC to even build a relationship, how do we even start? Where do we even start?
I think, like I did, I could have sold my clothes in my front yard in my area, but I went to where they were. So the first step would be go to where they are.
They hang out.
Yeah. Maybe they hang out in a park with their kids at a certain time. Take your kids and go there, or your dog, as long as it's well behaved, and go there. Be where they are, and then start talking to them, and show interest in people. Eat their food if they offer something to you. And then Afghans will always invite you to their house. So after you've met each other for a while, say, hey, could I come and visit you? And to some of us, sometimes we're like, oh, that's a burden. To them, it's a delight. Oh, wow, somebody's going to come. Somebody cares enough to come to see me. And then invite them to your home. So it's not hard, but it's also not easy. But you have to make that first step. Find where they are and go and be there.
You have to be there.
And say hi first. But, yeah.
So I think this was you who told me this about parenting. There's two cultural.
Yeah.
You want to explain that?
Yeah. So
I think that might be helpful.
Yeah, and it is helpful to help you not be so frustrated when you see Afghan children and the way they behave. I wonder if some of the Asian cultures are like this too, but I'm not sure. So the American cultures have this V shape. We put a lot of pressure in right here when they're young, and we do all this training. And as they
Then
get
we
older,
free
we
them up a bit,
release,
yeah.
and they're supposed to like grow
Yeah.
and be the right thing.
Mhm.
And then we get involved with Afghans, and their training culture is like this. And when they're little, they let them get away with anything, and it drives us nuts as American parents because we're like, why are they not
Saying
stopping their
anything.
kid?
Mm.
And we look at that and think, if the kid is that much out of control when she's 4 years old, I hate to see what's going to happen
Mm.
there. But if you look at Afghan families, by the time their kids are 12, 13, they've got well-behaved kids too.
Yeah.
But their structure is like this.
Mhm.
They expect the community in there to step in as the child gets older,
Mhm.
and the community, along with the parents, exerts that pressure to train and discipline them. So at the end, you get the same thing, but that thing looks really difficult to us. But it also helps you in ministry when you realize in this thing, you as the community are expected to step in. And so interacting with Afghan families who have children, especially with your children, is a really easy way of getting into their lives, because when they come here, they're missing that community. And so I'm dealing, not so much now, but previous years, I deal with a lot of Afghan moms who are really frustrated because they expected this, they were trained for this, and when they got there was no community. So then they're really struggling with their kids. So being able to step in and being part of that community that helps discipline and raise and teach children is really important in their culture.
Oh.
Well, thank you for sharing a little bit about your ministry, and I love all these stories. How can we as a church get involved in what you're doing?
Well, you have been involved so much in my life and supporting me and being there, and I know you've come out with Jennifer as well sometime to visit, and that's really encouraging when you're out there to have a church that is interested in what you're doing and involved, and it just really connects you to the church and breathes life into that. But this year's it's like 2 years ago, I was sort of out of ministry for a while dealing with breast cancer, and my team members started up an English camp in the summer because we just had that huge influx from the evacuation of Afghanistan. And so they started up an English camp for 1 week in the summer, and they did a great job. And then the next year, another church from Maryland, a Chinese church who's been involved in my kids' camps previously, before COVID shut them down, said, we want to come and do another week of camp. And so that went on last year. And then we said, we'll do it again this year. And my church had come along with the Chinese church from Maryland and got involved. And they're like, we want to do this next year as well. So this year we have 3 camps going on, and we've decided to focus on reading, because in those 2 years the kids have learned English, but their reading skills are really poor. So we're doing a camp, 3 weeks, the same kids going through a reading curriculum, but different churches every week. The last week, again, will be my wonderful Chinese church from Maryland. I really value their input and also the church that I go to in Atlanta is predominantly Korean.
Even though it's not called Korean church.
It's not called Korean church.
But 98% is Korean.
They're lovely people. But the Koreans and the Chinese really relate to the Afghan kids in such a unique way, because they have their same stories of when I came here as a child. They understand the burden these kids have of having to translate for their parents, for mortgages, for appointments, for doctors, for all of that. So there's so many connecting places. So I've really valued this Chinese church's input. So they're coming, but their team is a little smaller this year. And we talked to them, and they've agreed to allow a team from Fremont to come, and they'll be partnering together to lead at the kids' camp, the 3rd week of camp this year. And so we're really looking forward to that. And then hopefully next year, Fremont will have a bigger team in their own week, and we can go for 4 weeks.
I think that's scheduled for July.
Yes, it's for July.
Yeah.
Camp is 20 to 24.
Camp is 20 to 25 or 24 24 or 25. We haven't decided yet.
Okay. We'll see.
I got a bonus question I'd love to ask you.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about this before. I just think it'd be really cool to just get your perspective on the difference between like guilt, innocence culture, honor, shame, and then there's one more that I always forget.
Fear and power.
Fear and power. So could you just kind of unpack that for us a little bit? Because I think that would help us just understand a little bit too.
There is a book on that, the 4D Gospel by Jason Georges. It's a good book. He was actually working in Clarkson for a while. It's interesting for me because I grew up as a missionary kid. I grew up in Mexico in a village that was it was Catholic, but it was more spiritualistic than Catholic. So I grew up with my parents teaching me the gospel in a guilt and innocence mindset. But I grew up playing with my friends who were in that fear and power. And I went, because we ran around loose as kids in the 70s and 80s, I went to different places where they were doing sacrifices and all sorts of stuff. So I was very aware of the spirit world. And as a child, I had a fear of that. My parents' gospel had no connection to that at all. So I didn't understand the gospel. I agreed with the gospel. I said my little prayer several times, so make sure I get my ticket to heaven right. But it didn't connect with the needs in me of how I saw the world. And then I went to 6th grade. My teacher read me a book, The Tower of Gabor by John White. And there it's a little bit like an allegory of like C.S. Lewis, but there's a little bit more fighting between the good and the bad, the red light and the blue light. And opening the book would emit a light that would kill all the evil things coming. So there it put Christianity in a place where it touched my fear and power need. And that's when I began to seek. And then we moved over to Pakistan to work with Afghans, and we moved to a different mindset of this guilt and shame, shame and honor. Not guilt and shame, shame and honor, shame and honor culture. And I finished growing up in that. So the rest of my personality kind of moved into the shame and honor with a base of fear and power, which is actually very much what Afghans have. Because even though they are Muslims, they have that like cultural Islam, folk Islam base where they believe in the jinn and the spirits and all that. So in a weird way, God prepared me for the people I was going to work with. And that shame and honor is all about being in or being out, being connected to or not connected. You could see it in really extreme cases where it's saving face and doing all of that. But it's about, is that relationship whole? Are you connected to or are you out from? And when you approach the gospel like the people that think like that and you tell them right and wrong, you did wrong, you're punished, they're just like, what does that have to do with me? The same like me when I was in that fear and power mindset. It's like, how does that reach my life? But when you come to show them the gospel, the way the gospel is actually written quite a bit in the Bible as well, is we were with God and we broke that connection. And now we're in a place of shame because we've done wrong. God wants to bring us back. He wants to restore that relationship. He wants to give us that honor again. He took our shame, and he's now giving us that honor and bringing us back in. That's the gospel they relate to, because they understand that. Oddly enough, the United States is moving away from a guilt and innocence to that shame and honor, but it's seen very differently than the Asian shame and honor. But if you go back to the basis of what shame and honor is, it's, are you connected and in, or are you out? Now put that into your local high school and your youth groups and all that. That's the reality of the world they live in. It presents differently, but it's the same thing. Are you in, or are you out? And we have a deep longing to be connected, to be part of, to be accepted by. And that longing is actually a longing to be accepted by and connected to God. And if we can approach the gospel with our youth and our people here in America, not with you did wrong, get right, but with there's a God who you long to be connected to, and He wants to bring you back to Him in relationship with Him. The gospel's going to go a lot farther.